Joe Reinagel, Jason Minix, The Blitz on 94.1 San Antonio's Sports Star.
It is The Blitz here on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. Joe Reinagel has the day off. I'm Jason Minix. Always fun to catch up with an old friend. It's been too long. Former Spur, three-time NBA champion, Danny Green, joining us now on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Danny, you tweeted the other day, man, congrats San Antonio, LOL. Your first thoughts when you saw San Antonio win that draft lottery?
I mean, I laugh because I just thought, they're one of the luckiest organizations in the last 20 years to be able to get the draft picks when the time was necessary. They got the last three bigs, number one big men, and I guess when they had the number one draft pick, opportunity to get them anyway. But I was excited. The city was excited. I was happy for them. They had a couple down years, but not for long. They get a chance to turn around and then get back to where they were. And I think him being able to be drafted there is a perfect fit for, with him, Pop, and obviously the guys that have been there with Tony here, the connection, and Timmy and David Robinson have started with those guys who can teach him and kind of take them under their wing if they do decide to draft him, which I'm sure they will. I think it's just very ironic how everything kind of happened for them. But I was excited for them in the city, and I'm sure the city really needed it. You could tell how excited they were and how the streets were flooding and just raving and raging about the news. So it was just fun to see.
It was nuts, man. I mean, we were doing our show in a draft lottery party over at the Rue Pub there at 281 in Redland, and I'm sure you've seen the videos from inside the Rue Pub when that was announced that San Antonio won the lottery. Yeah. And because you were here for championships, what this city is like and what the Spurs mean to San Antonio and what Wemby will mean. I've got to ask you, you've been in the league a long time, well-traveled, with your career, the way it worked out. When you see video of Wemby and you're talking to other NBA players or scouts or GMs, what do you see in Wemby that the average fan doesn't?
I feel like most fans, the average fan, do see. I think a lot of basketball fans can see he's just special, isn't he? You're not really missing much as an average fan or an insight. Or a person that knows the game even better. But I think as a person that understands or knows the game a little better, you can see his IQ. An average fan may not see that, but everybody can see how skilled he is. They can see the height, the athleticism, the length of what he can do with that size, things that you can't teach. But I said the things that you probably can't see, as an average fan can't see, is how well he kind of adapts and adjusts and can pick up things and learn. And I guess how eager he is to learn. He's excited about being in San Antonio and being that organization. Most people wouldn't be excited about that or that type of scenario. You can see he was not going. It seemed like he didn't want to go to Houston, maybe because it was a culture thing. But you could just tell how young and humble and how positive he was about the news and how much he was eager to want to play for Pop.
Danny Green joining us here on the Blitz. I want to ask you something. You just kind of mentioned it. Some people might not be excited about coming to San Antonio, and it was a knock for years, especially while you were here with Tim, Tony, Manu, that group. A lot of free agents didn't come here. Part of that was there wasn't a need or the money to go get some big free agents. But does that change when Wemby arrives in San Antonio? Will a lot of players say, you know what, I do want to go play in San Antonio?
Definitely. I think, when you got a city in Texas like San Antonio and the fans behind it are so great, I think they already have some attractions for players, and people want to be there. You're in Texas, no state taxes, in a warm city, warm weather in the middle of the country. It's a really good location, and with the good fans, when you have talent, it said it'll bring in other talent, and all it takes is one piece really to drive in those type of stars. I don't know if a lot of guys will want to go, but I know it definitely is you have a different perspective on the situation and organization now. When you look at an organization and they're obviously have a great city, but they're losing and don't have pieces to turn around and win, you're like, I don't know if I want to be there. A lot of guys are making their decisions on winning, and that's how their careers are panning out. So when it comes to like basing off a career or trying to extend your career or wanting to win in your career, you look at the situations that fit, but also something that can either turn your career around or help your career in terms of winning and success. So when you have a big star like that or a guy coming in like that, you feel like you can be a part of that turnaround situation and be in a winning organization in the near future.
You think about, Danny, when you were here, Kind of felt like about 4 minutes after you were in Toronto, you dropped a podcast. I remember you said on this show you weren't allowed to do that in San Antonio. Are there some
I wouldn't say I
things?
wasn't allowed to. It was maybe a little discouraged at the time, but yeah, it wasn't like I wasn't say I was encouraged, but I wasn't as confident in doing it while I was in San Antonio.
Fair.
So yes,
Is there things the way the Spurs run their organization that might keep some players away, or do you think that the way the Spurs have done things have changed over the last couple of years that would attract free agents?
yeah, I think they've changed a little bit. Pop has changed. You have to adapt and adjust with the times. I'm sure there's some stories, some horror stories out there, well, not horror stories, but there's some stories that their guys may give or say, that may drive some players away. But I think the real basketball players want to compete and win, and want to get the best out of themselves, but also their group. And I think Pop is a perfect person for that. He does that consistently. So yeah, I think there's certain things that have changed, and then with the times you've seen, they have different players and guys accepting, their roles and how they do things. But also, it all depends on the type of player, and that's why I said it separates Wemby from the other guys. He's not shying away from it. He's accepting that challenge. And I think those who are okay with being criticized and challenged and want to be successful are okay with being in that organization. And I think that just shows his IQ and his maturity at the young age he is to be able to want to be in that type of system.
Danny Green joining us here on the San Antonio Sports Star. I mean, I felt like we were asking these questions when you were playing for Pop. How many more years does he have? How long does he want to do it? You add Wemby. How much time does that add to Pop's career in San Antonio?
That's a Pop question, but I would assume it extends his career a little bit. When you have a talent like that, it makes coach. He had fun. I talked to him here and there. He had fun coaching the guys he had this year. They competed, they worked hard, and they were in the beginning of the year. They were winning some games, and they were in a lot of games. So he enjoyed, just coaching with those guys. I can imagine, having that talent, what his enjoyment has gone, what level has gone to. I'll be able to, have this project to be able to coach and then start to build around it.
You've been on championship teams and you've been on teams that were struggling. When you look at what the Spurs roster has with the addition of Wemby, if you were to say, all right, 2 years, 3 years, how quickly before they're back to being in legitimate title contention?
I'd say you got to give them at least, 3, 4 years. I'd say at least 3 years. It depends on what kind of pieces they get this summer. There's always a lot of movement now, and it's not just free agents, but trades. Draft night, we'll see what trades happen with picks. We'll see what kind of free agents go there. It can happen sooner than that, but I would say with his maturity and production and him becoming what people see him becoming a superstar, it usually takes at least 2, 3 years for guys to get that level and then be able to lead a franchise. So it might happen sooner. Obviously when Timmy came in, he had David already. He's there by himself, but if they might pick up somebody else, it could change or turn the tables for them quickly. But I'd say at least 3 years, for them to get to that level again.
Danny Green joining us here on the Blitz. You played last year in Cleveland. I know you're a free agent now. I know you've been working on broadcasting. You were wanting to do a lot of that while you were here. So I know you've been thinking about that transition whenever your basketball career does end. You're doing a lot of work for ESPN during the NBA playoffs. Let's talk about what we saw last night with the Lakers Nuggets series. I mean, the Nuggets now up 2-0. What are you seeing in Anthony Davis's game where he can't offensively put back-to-back big games? I mean, it's like every other game is a great game, and then he has a game like last night.
For sure. I think people have the expectations when he puts up 40 and 10 that he's going to do it the whole series. That's hard to do for any player, not just Anthony Davis. Damn near, I'm saying impossible, but it's really hard to sustain that type of expectation. I think he played well enough for them to win the game last night. They didn't need him to be super great. He obviously protected the paint, the rim, defensively, and rebounded. He did his job. Offensively, he didn't shoot as well as he would like to, but he still, I think, had 18 and 14 or something like that. And Rui and Austin Reeves carried those guys for most of the game. Braun played well for the most part too. Just and I think they got ran out of gas and got tired. But for AD, he has to be more forceful. I guess in his attack and his approach with each game, which I'm sure he'll do from here on out. But it's hard to say for any player, even if their approach is the same, to play as well. You're going to miss shots in games. You're going to play. That's why it's a 7-game series. There's going to be some games where you lay an egg or you play bad. I think a lot of people have the expectation that he needs to play, super great, every game, which is I'm saying it's impossible, but it's very hard to do because he's played and he's played at some very high levels, defensively and offensively, which I wouldn't say is above his standard, but he hasn't been healthy for a long, consistent period of time. So for him, it's probably new to play all these games consistently and try to sustain that type of intensity and that usage that he hasn't had in a while.
What do you say if you're a teammate? What do you say to him?
I just tell him to stick with it. Last night I thought he did what he did his job. I think they all played well. I think they were up most of the game. They kind of gave away and ran out of gas. I would just tell them, stay locked in and keep focused. We need you. I'm sure they're saying the same thing. I do like when he does shoot three here and there. He took three last night, two out of desperation, but I think he could probably shoot more of them. But he's doing his job. He didn't have a big game last night, but he played well enough for sure to win. He just didn't make the many shots that he normally would, but he still had a good enough game. I just think they needed a little more help. Austin Reeves and Rui played well outside of that. They didn't have much other help than that. And then Denver, they got hot at the right time. Michael Porter Jr. hit a couple, obviously Jamal Murray went off crazy in the fourth quarter, hit a couple threes. Michael Porter Jr. just chimed in. KCP chimed in. Like those guys hit hit a three there, and then Jamal Murray hits 2 or 3 threes. That opens up the game. So it's just hard to come back from that deficit.
And you look at, Denver, and it kind of does feel like it was in San Antonio. They're not the narrative. You heard Mike Malone say that after the game last night. The narrative was all about what are the Lakers going to do. At what point do you think Denver starts getting the respect that they really are a good basketball team?
When they win the series. It is the Lakers. I mean, it sucks to say, but it like well, the narrative is for Denver, which sucks because it's not true, is that they always or they don't have it. They don't have enough. They're not good enough to win a title. I think they are. I'm sure they believe that as well. So they have to prove it and show it. And people don't respect them. Just like Utah a couple years ago, they were great in the regular season. People don't believe in the playoffs. You got to make people believe. Unfortunately, I think they're the real deal. I think they're ready to be on that final stage and good enough to win a championship. But they have to go out and do it. And obviously, anytime a team loses a series being up 3-1, they're going to talk about it. They mentioned the Clippers. They talked about the Clippers. They talked about Utah. I mean, I don't think it matters who it is that they play. And if any team was up 3-1 and they lose that series, I think they're going to talk about that team having a meltdown instead of the team that actually won. Obviously, they'll give them praise to the team that won, but for you to lose 3-1, it's usually some type of meltdown, some type of form of miscommunication or breakdowns. So that's tough. But for them, they just have to go out and prove it.
Danny Green joining us here on the Blitz. Let's talk about the East. Game 2 tonight. Miami got game 1. How is Miami getting it done? I mean, you look at the matchups and, for them to get game 1, and I know it's more than just playoff, Jimmy, what are they doing that has got them from the play-in to where they are now, up 1-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Well, Spur is an amazing coach, man. He's been coaching his ass off, but they've been greatly moving the ball and trusting each other, and that's what the game is about. So they're having great ball movement, great guys stepping up and knocking down shots. Their vets are doing an amazing job. Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry done an amazing job off the bench. Then you got Caleb Martin, Strus. Everybody's chiming in and doing their thing. They're making shots. You have, 6 guys with 15-plus points. You scoring 120 points a game. Their pace without Tyler Hero is not what anybody expected. People thought when Tyler Hero went out that they'd be for sure be done. But the fact that they're putting up those type of points, you could beat anybody when you're scoring that well. And then defensively, so they have Bam, not only initiating offense and Jimmy, but defensively those guys are playing well and scrambling and on a string. So they've been hooping, man. You got to give them a lot of credit.
Jason Tatum didn't even take a shot in the fourth quarter of the other game. Had a great stat line, but no shots in the fourth quarter. How does that happen?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Him and Jaylen Brown sometimes. I think it's a part of just being young. There's some I wouldn't say lack of focus or immaturity, but they are young, and there's times that it can happen, and maybe there's sometimes the coach is looking for something different. And I think they've been trying to figure out all year with coaching change of how to balance out certain guys. Certain rotations. They've had certain guys in and out of rotations, injuries, and not playing with Grant Williams, Robin Williams, Al Horford. But yeah, I think he had a couple travel calls that might have made him or discouraged him to not be as aggressive, or maybe somebody else had it rolling. But Miami's playing well. They played good defense on them, and they were scoring. So I don't think it had anything to do with Tatum. They were scoring. They had a 45-point quarter, and so they needed him to score and be aggressive. I don't know what happened on the other side, but I think Boston they settle a little bit too much when it comes to that. Certain times in the game, they probably could do a better job of putting more pressure on the paint and trying to get to the free throw line. I'm sure they'll make that adjustment, and I'm sure game 2 will turn out different for them.
Danny Green joining us here on the Blitz, man. Good catching up to you outside of basketball. What have you been up to, man?
Say just what you mentioned, man. Just working out, rehabbing, keeping the knee right, getting ready for this free agency. get picked up by a team. Hopefully, I got a couple good years left and doing some ESPN work. Get a chance to get on the camera, talk some sports, break down the game. Then not focus on, but have fun with a new challenge.
Absolutely, but you're not done.
No, I'm not done at all. I definitely have a good couple of years left in me.
Absolutely. Although I imagine ESPN can't wait till you're full time, man. You're great on TV, great on the radio. Appreciate you doing this, man.
Anytime, man. Hey, hopefully I have a long ways to go, but hopefully I get better, and hopefully I can get when I'm done, when the time is right, I'll get a nice little position on a panel somewhere, whether it's ESPN, whether it's TNT, wherever it is. Hopefully we see my face, be able to stay around the game and break down the game and teach people, I guess, the behind the scenes, or I guess the X's and O's that they may not see, from looking at the TV.
Always appreciate it. Always loved having you on when you were here, man, and good catching up, man. Thanks, dude, for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. For
appreciate
sure, anytime.
It. The great
All
Danny
right,
Green on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Buyers Barricades provides traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond. Online at buyersbarricades.com.